What's going on? I'm Sam, and it's my third day at my new full-time production job. I'm running pretty late today, which means I'll end up leaving pretty late. Hey bud, I know you hate this, but I'll be back, okay? I'll be back. But without waiting any longer, I'm going to make the hour-and-a-half drive and get to work. After a glorious 1 hour and 15-minute drive, I'm now here and I'm ready to start grinding. Today I got the bigger mixing containers, so I'm able to get the mixing time down from about 10 minutes to about 2 minutes or 3 minutes per batch, which saves over an hour a day, so that's really cool. So it takes a while for this machine to turn on, but it works well because while the machine's turning on, I mixed about 4 of these containers worth, so they'll be ready. And then I run all 4 containers. That takes about 4 hours, which gives me time to go get lunch. The mold's pretty hot by that point, so it gives that time to cool off. Then when I come back, the machine has to heat up again and turn on, which gives me time to mix about 4 more of these and get the rest of the parts done for that day. But the machine's turned on, heated up, and I'm ready to go, so I'm gonna get back into production mode. So the molds are pretty cold right now because they haven't been used since yesterday. So it's going to take about 4 or 5 times for the parts to start being produced. The material has to kind of make its way through the mold and start warming it up before it's going to be able to fully inject the parts. So at the start of the day and after lunch, the first few that I do aren't full parts. So first run of the day, and you can see it didn't fill the whole cavity, which like I said is pretty expected. And my hands are already starting getting covered by aluminum dust. But today I was able to pick up this brush, so hopefully I'll be able to brush my hands pretty well and keep them clear. Okay, the second time and I'm already getting full parts. That seems quicker than normal. The second time and I'm already getting a full sheet. Well, time to start production. The one thing that I cannot stress is just how incredibly repetitive this is. And before every batch, I spray the molds with a mold release. So I just had what I'd call a crippling production problem, where my first few sets were so painstakingly slow, and that's because this carriage kept getting jammed. It's sliding easy now, and that's because I did a little bit of troubleshooting. All this aluminum dust is from this mold, and every time it's sliding on the steel, it's taking off a little bit of aluminum every time. And I've done enough runs that it took enough on the bottom that it was sinking low enough that it's actually starting to bind. This plate's what the mold carriage actually slides on, because when it's done being pushed into this wedge, this plate actually pops up and pops it out of the bind. So all I had to do is adjust the rods that pull this up to make it come up just a little bit higher. So these rods are run through these wedges and they go all the way up to here. And there's 2 nuts on either side. So all I had to do is take the protective plastic off, get a wrench in there, and just bring that bottom up just enough to let it travel smoothly. If I keep going with the amount of producing that I'm doing, it's gonna start binding again maybe in 3 or 4 days, but I'll take care of it again when it starts doing that. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of how this thing goes on, because even when you adjust your shot for the amount of plastic that's going into the mold, you have to take this protective cover off. which when you're switching molds, you might want to adjust that. It just seems like they'd have a quicker way to adjust that, but whatever. And now that this goes smoothly, here we go. Okay, I ran into my first huge problem, and I first noticed that a couple pieces coming out were kind of offset, which I was like, what just happened? I ran it again, they were fine, so I didn't think much of it. And then a few pieces later, I realized they were still coming out slightly offset, and I started looking at the mold. And much to my dismay, there's a problem with the mold pins. These are the pins that align the molds to make sure it's completely straight. So nothing against the guy that designed or made these. It's really impressive though. He went from knowing nothing about machining to making these working small production molds. I don't think he'd ever used a lathe or a mill before, and he ended up learning how to use them, making these molds, polishing them, and figuring out the injection mold machine. But here's the problem. For the alignment pins, he made these threaded aluminum pins, and I don't know if they were a little loose to begin with, but it seems like there's just a little too much clearance, where these are aluminum and traditionally they're like tapered steel alignment pins, but now the threads are just a little loose and they're rocking back and forth along with the pin itself is rocking a little bit. And before you say it's user error of me mistreating these molds, the pins in the actual mold are super solid, and they've withstood everything that I've done with 2 different molds, as well as what he's done with every single mold. So I don't think it's me. I do think it's a problem with these pins, and honestly, I'm not sure how I'm gonna fix it or make it work. I need to think about a solution because I don't have much time to get this done. An elegant solution would be kind of redoing the pins with something a little bit better fitting, but the time that would take is time we might not have. These have to be done for Christmas. So I'm gonna come up with a solution and hopefully start running parts again today. Well, I came up with a simple and elegant solution, and that is tighten the crud out of these things. Because by tightening them, they're able to get to the part of the screw that's not completely tapped yet and get that side tight. I guess I should have tried that first before freaking out, and it seems to work. I'll see if it holds up. I guess worst case scenario, I'll tighten them again. Looks like my elegant solution wasn't quite so elegant. While it did get rid of all the free play on the threaded side, there's still enough free play on the smooth side that the molds are still rocking and creating a bad shift again, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna fix it yet. I think I'm gonna take this time to go to lunch. Well, I think I'm gonna take this time to go to dinner. It's really disappointing because I've hardly gotten any parts made today, but I do need to be able to make good parts instead of making parts that are unusable. So I'm gonna figure this out, come back, and hopefully be able to get a whole bunch more parts made up tonight. If I can't figure it out, I might have to switch parts, leaving the rest of these for another day when I figure out that mold, and switching to a different mold, at least for now. Oh, after taking a short break and finagling with this thing over and over again, I got it where it's making parts pretty good. They're at an acceptable level now. I finished the whole batch that I was on. It took me way too long, and now I only have about 3.5 hours left, which should be plenty of time to finish the 4 batches that I made up this morning. But I was trying to get 8 done today, though with all these problems, getting 4 done, I guess, is better than none. Anyway, I got another long 3.5 hours, so I'm just gonna sit down and accept my fate of running these into the night. Halfway done for the day. Well, good enough since I'm gonna get them dirty again anyway. Oh man, and I just found the bigger problem. It looks like hydraulic fluid is leaking from somewhere. All I know is it's higher than the floor and there's a puddle on the floor. I'm trying to trace where it's coming from. No luck yet. Yeah, I'm really not sure because all the lines and fittings look dry, but there's definitely a couple spots that are getting a couple drips. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's still plenty of fluid in it. I'm just gonna keep going and monitoring the fluid level, seeing if the leak keeps going or gets any worse. The problem is there's really not much leaking. It looks like it might be coming from the fluid reservoir itself. I can't find anything anywhere except for around the gauge. But yeah, it seems like it's a slow leak. I'll keep an eye on it, but it's back to the grind for now. So I didn't get this 4th run done. I only got 3 done. It's getting pretty late and this place is technically about to close. My key card would stop working. I probably could work after that, but I don't feel like it because I don't know the rules. So I'm gonna get out of here and get home. I didn't do nearly as much as I wanted to today, and I blame that mostly on the problems I've been having. I keep running into issues, I keep trying to fix them, but I'm not sure how many more problems could pop up. I'm sure I'll be surprised. But that's gonna be it for today. When I come back, I'll explain kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing or how I got into it, something like that. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. But now I gotta get home to Griffin because I know he really misses me, and I miss him too. Hey buddy, I'm home. Hi, Griffin. You're so happy.